Hi class, this is Susan Priest, and here we are looking at epistemology and the British empiricists, John Locke, George Berkeley, and David Hume. So one question to think about is, these are related to the reading assignments for this week, is do you think belief is linked to facts? How does this get confused and hard to determine in the real world? When you hear people say, I believe this, I believe that this person was murdered, rather than just saying this person was murdered. How is philosophy a way of sharpening our thinking? How do I move beyond thinking that is just tied to observations from my senses? Now, I think the interesting question this week is really, who or what is the perceiving being according to Berkeley? Can we know and identify cause and effect in our observations of matters of fact? Question from David Hume. So there's three basic divisions within epistemology. The skeptics, who claim that we can't really know, or at least we should doubt what we know. And skepticism was very big in ancient Greece through the time of Augustine. So Plato, Aristotle, Augustine, Neoplotinus, they were all arguing against skepticism in some way, saying that there was something that we could know. The other two main branches of epistemology are rationalism, which is that we know from a priori principles like Plato and Descartes. So we know through deductive reasoning, logic, we can understand math, and these are principles that we understand before our experience, a priori, before experience. And then we have those who are empiricists. We know from a posteriori principles like Aristotle, Locke, and Hume. All right. Now, this is a picture I took in England this past summer. What can you know from this picture? What argument is this person making? Who is Gary Sansom, bald man sings Rihanna? What can we know about this person's argument? Do you think they're ridiculing Rihanna, or are they celebrating Rihanna? What do you know? Exceptionally funny, Mark Dolan from Balls of Steel says. So John Locke, British philosopher from the 17th century, is attributed with the quote of saying that people are born as blank slates, or tabula rasa. And he said that all people are born knowing nothing, and that we learn by our experience, by knowing sense data. So we come out and we're just learning as soon as we are born. But we don't know anything other than what we experience, he says. Now, John Locke distinguished between primary qualities, the thing itself, and secondary qualities, which are concepts that are in our minds, which are derived from our primary experience. So everything comes down to having an experience of something. That's how we know. Now, George Berkeley, another 17th century philosopher who was an Irish bishop, had a very different point of view, but interestingly enough, he was called one of the three British empiricists. Locke, Berkeley, and Hume are all called British empiricists. Esse percipi is to be perceived. So basically, you exist because you are perceived. He saw that there are only perceivers and perceptions, and that nothing is material, there are only ideas. You are an idea. you are in the mind. And how do things not disappear from view? Well, he says there is an ultimate perceiver who is God. So God is always watching, and as the ultimate perceiver brings things into existence. So it's really something to get your mind around. He has a metaphysical view of a unified reality, and oddly enough, an empirical epistemology. And then we have David Hume, who is a Scottish philosopher from the 18th century, and he was a skeptic and an empiricist. He was atheistic, so this was unusual for his time period, for someone to be atheistic. There's a great quote. I didn't have you read it this time. I might have you read it later. It's his view of the self, and he saw that the human mind was a theater where perceptions come into view and create an idea of a self, so that everything that we perceive about ourselves is really just shifting perceptions. David Hume divided human inquiry into two categories. The first category was relations of ideas, like math, and then the next was matters of fact. So in the essay that you were to read this week, he talked a lot about what is happening with cause and effect. Now, this is sort of an interesting question to me. Do you think you can perceive cause and effect? David Hume doesn't think you can. You just assume the sun is going to come up because it did yesterday, and your perception is actually a matter of principle of custom or habit, so that we're conditioned by our habit patterns more than anything else, more than actually seeing the cause and effect, because he would claim that we can't really see cause and effect. What do you think this person's argument is? Now, I don't know who this person is. It was at some rally, and I took a picture of this person's sweatshirt. So she's making an argument. What do you think it is? What is your argument? So as you're considering, maybe you've already figured out, maybe you've already written your second paper, but if you haven't already, what is your argument? So keep going back to what's an argument you are actually trying to make about the world, about what you perceive, about anything that you've read, or just the nature of reality. What's your argument? Keep coming back to that.